Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, welcome back to my retrospective boxing series. So those of you who have been following the series will know that a large part of it has involved me talking about British fighters who were at one point in time either world champions or at very least highly regarded contenders. I've talked about the likes of Lee Selby, Kevin Mitchell, Clinton Woods, Alex Arthur and guys of that level. Guys who were world class fighters at one point in time, but were never able to really remain at world level for very long. British boxing history is filled with guys like this. Guys who get to a certain level and gain a lot of popularity, yet retire and disappear into obscurity just as quickly. One fighter who is a good example of this in my opinion is the former IBF World Middleweight champion Darren Barker. So Darren Barker turned professional in 2004 in the super middleweight division after a decent amateur career that included a Commonwealth Games championship. He was one of the most promising and talented young British prospects of that year. He spent the first few years of his career fighting journeymen on small hall shows across the UK, building up his name slowly, alternating between middleweight and super middleweight, becoming the Southern Area middleweight champion in the process. The first serious test of his career came in late 2007, where he got a shot at the vacant Commonwealth title, taking on undefeated contender Ben Crampton. Barker dominated the fight, winning by a wide unanimous decision. For his first title defence, he took on the tough experienced British fighter Stephen Bendel, winning by a 7th round stoppage, after a dominant performance. This solidified Barker as one of the leading British middleweights, and gained him a lot of popularity. He then travelled over to Canada, taking on the Canadian fringe contender Larry Sharp, in what was a pretty big risk at that stage of his career. The fight was fairly competitive, with Barker winning by a 10-round unanimous decision, proving that he had the ability to fight on the road if need be. He then returned to the UK, defending his title against British contender Jason Mackay. Barker dominated the fight, winning by a 6th round stoppage. For his next defence, he had the biggest fight of his career yet, taking on the fellow British prospect Darren McDermott. The fight was close for a few rounds, with Barker slightly getting the better of them. Then in round 4, Barker landed a right hand, knocking McDermott to the canvas. Despite getting up and beating the count, the referee waved off the fight prematurely, giving Barker a 4th round TKO victory. Barker then got a shot at the vacant British title against Danny Butler, winning by a 7th round stoppage after a dominant performance. The following year he had the toughest fight of his career yet, with a shot at the vacant European title against the French contender Afif Belgachum, winning by a competitive unanimous decision. The following year, after winning the European title, Barker was unfortunately injured in a street fight, where he apparently attempted to break up a fight, leading to a stretch of inactivity. He came back in 2011, getting another shot at the vacant European title against the Italian contender Domenico Spada. It turned out to be an even tougher fight. Barker won by a very close and competitive unanimous decision, becoming European champion for a 2nd time. Later that year he had the biggest fight of his career yet, travelling over to America for a shot at the WBC Diamond middleweight title against the champion Sergio Martinez. Barker got off to a great start, outboxing Martinez in some of the early rounds, and giving him a tough fight. However, as the fight went on, the superior speed, power and athleticism of the champion took over the fight entirely, and Martinez unfortunately proved to be too much, brutally knocking out Barker in the 11th round, giving Barker the first defeat of his career. After a year out of the ring, Barker returned in 2012, taking on the Australian-based British fringe contender Kerry Hope. Barker stopped Hope in the 4th round after a dominant performance. He then got a shot at the vacant IBF Intercontinental title, taking on Italian contender Simon Rotolo, winning by a 4th round stoppage after a dominant performance. Later that year he finally got a shot at a world title, travelling over to America to take on the Australian IBF champion Daniel Geale, in what was a fantastic fight where both men had their moments. Barker got up from a knockdown in the 6th round to win the fight by a close split decision, becoming world middleweight champion. A few months later, Barker had the final fight of his career, travelling over to Germany to take on his mandatory challenger, the 3-time middleweight champion and German boxing legend Felix Sturm. Barker was a significant favourite going into the fight, since Sturm was a fighter who had seen better days and had had some pretty grueling fights over the years. He was considered by many fans to be considerably past his prime. He also lost his title to Daniel Geale, who Barker was able to beat. However, in a shock upset, Sturm went on to destroy Barker in 2 rounds, dropping him twice and forcing Barker's trainer to throw in the towel, giving Barker the second defeat of his career. Barker got up from the first knockdown and appeared to hurt his hip, later claiming this as the reason he lost. Barker retired shortly after. So yeah, despite him having a very brief time at world level, Barker certainly had an interesting career, and as far as I'm concerned, he made his mark on the sport. So how good was Darren Barker? How would he have done in today's era, or any era besides his own? Let's talk about it. So in my personal opinion, Darren Barker was a great boxer, with some very good boxing fundamentals. On a good night, he would have always been a hard fight for any middleweight. The problem is that despite his excellent boxing fundamentals and boxing skills, he was a bit fragile. His chin was never the best, and he was never the biggest puncher, at least by world-class middleweight standards. His losses to Martinez and Sturm proved that it only took one good shot to make him completely fall apart, and he generally seemed like a fighter who wasn't really that durable. In the Geale fight, he basically gave as good a performance as he possibly could, and it was one of them situations where he wasn't going to be denied on that particular night. He was willing to leave it all in the ring to win that fight and become world champion, making him a bit of an overachiever. I personally don't think he would have beaten Geale on most other nights, and I doubt we would have ever seen a performance from him like that again. So yeah, in short, Darren Barker was a great boxer, but wasn't really tough enough to make it at world level for very long. I wouldn't give him much of a chance against any of the middleweight all-time greats on their best night, but he was a great domestic level fighter who became a world champion nonetheless. Thanks for watching, guys. I really enjoy talking about the career of Darren Barker. Stay tuned for more retrospective boxing videos. I have a lot of them coming to the channel in the near future. Thanks for watching and God bless.